Hey everyone, Brandon here from Drumeo, and about 6 years ago, I discovered a group of drummers who made me realize that we're in a golden age of drumming. These drummers are pushing the boundaries of drumming and playing things on the drum kit that have never been done before. These grooves are going to challenge you technically and rhythmically, and also offer you a glimpse into the world of contemporary drumming. And with that, let's get right into the first groove, which is from the band R+R NOW. So that track is called Respond, and the drummer on that track is Tyson, who is an absolute monster behind the kit. So we have quarter notes happening on the ride. I'm going to play that over here, just like Justin does when he performs this live. We have the hi-hat foot happening on beats 2 and 4, bass drum on every downbeat on beat 1, and the very last 16th note of each bar on the ah of beat 4. And then we have a whole bunch of ghost notes filling in between those backbeats that are happening on beat 3. Also, a 5-stroke roll in 30-second notes leading into basically every new 4-bar phrase. Take this slow when you're learning it, start limb by limb, and then put it all together. With that, let's move on to groove number 2. This one is called Smash, and it's by Avishai Cohen. So this song, Smash, was my very first introduction to this type of contemporary music. Contemporary jazz, fusion, whatever you want to call it. And it's complex, but for me it was an accessible tune because it was still in 4/4, even though there are some odd time sections in the first part of the track. But it's a great track with Guiliana on drums, and the drum part is very, very cool because there's a whole bunch of groupings and stuff happening on the kick and some broken ride cymbal stuff happening. So let's break down what's going on. I've notated the first 4 bars of that sort of repeating phrase, and you'll see that we have a ride pattern that looks like this. Now, underneath, we have some bass drum figures that are outlining some 5-note groupings, some 6-note groupings, and these are all falling on different 16th note placements on the kick. Lastly, you want to add in the ghost notes. So the last thing I want to say before we put this with the track is when you repeat this 4-bar phrase, on the repeat, take out that very first kick drum note in bar 1 and then add it back in on the 3rd rotation. And that just will make it so it lines up with the bass part. Let's put this with the track and see how it sounds up to speed. Number 3, we have a groove from the Kendrick Scott Oracle, of course with Kendrick Scott on drums. He's probably one of the contemporary drummers who has had the biggest influence on my own personal playing. He's such a thoughtful and expressive player, and his dynamic range is unbelievable. So go check out Kendrick Scott if you haven't already. And this song specifically we're going to look at, called Be Water, is a great example of how Kendrick and his band make odd time signatures feel absolutely seamless and really not like odd time at all. So let's load up the track here. This is Be Water from the album Conviction. So as you heard there, we're in 11/4 time, or alternating bars of 6/4 and 5/4, however you want to think about that. So in the first bar, we have sort of this dotted quarter note feel happening on the hi-hats with some ghost notes in between. And then sort of the same thing in the second bar, except we're in 5, so we have one less quarter note in that second bar. Number 4, we're back with another Kendrick Scott Oracle tune called We Are the Drum, and this was the very first song from the Kendrick Scott Oracle I ever heard. Basically, I was at music school and a friend of mine was blasting it through one of the practice rooms, and we all walked over and were like, what is this? And there's a crazy drum solo pretty much throughout the entire tune, but it's so tasteful, and the dynamics between section to section are just ridiculous. So check out the entire track, it's incredible, but I want to focus on one groove that Kendrick plays kind of in the opening section. And it goes between 2 bars of 5/4 and a bar of 4/4. Let's check it out. So you heard a ride cymbal groove happening there right up on the bell, and he went into some soloing stuff after that, but this is the groove I want to focus on, and it's very syncopated. It's in 5/4, and we have a cross stick happening on beat 3 of those first 2 bars of 5. Right, so that ride cymbal pattern repeats in bar 1 and 2. The kick pattern changes a little bit in bar 2. And then at the end of bar 3, the bar of 4/4, Kendrick plays just one rack tom. And that was just kind of an improvised thing that he did there. But I think it's a really cool sort of transition to reset that phrase. This is up to tempo at 276 beats per minute. So this track is called The Dance of Shiva with Eric Harland on drums, and this was written by Billy Childs off of his record Rebirth, which is a total masterpiece. There's some other great tracks on that album, and it actually won a Grammy for Best Jazz Instrumental Album in 2017. On the ride cymbal, we're in 11/4 time, or we've broken it up here into 2 bars of 4/4 and a bar of 3/4. So we got like straight quarter notes happening here on the ride, and then on the kick and the snare we have a bunch of syncopation happening, and all of this stuff is lining up with other parts of the melody and the harmony, and it just creates this real sense of tension in the music. And now let's check this out with the track up to speed at 124 BPM. So for number 6, we're back with another Mark Guiliana track from the song 11 Wives by Avishai Cohen. And this is off of the Avishai Cohen trio record, Gently Disturbed, which is an absolute classic in the world of contemporary jazz, if you can say there's contemporary jazz classics. And I always thought it was in 7, played as triplets, which would be 21 8-note triplets in a bar, basically. But I later found out that this is a 2-bar pattern in 11/8. Which is 22 8th notes. So I was close, but not quite there. Anyways, this is a really, really cool 11/8 shuffle pattern that happens over 2 bars, and we're just gonna listen to it now and then break it down. That is one of my all-time favorite grooves, regardless of style. That is so cool. And I've really just broken this down for the very first time over the last few months. And it's tough sometimes in these modern jazz tunes to really hear all the parts that are going on. But we've transcribed one of the grooves, I guess you can call it, that Mark plays right at the beginning there when he comes in with the main pattern. And let's break this down. So in 11/8, we have 11 eighth notes, and it's broken up into 3 groups of 3, 3, 6, 9, and then we have 2 eighth notes left over at the end. So you have this repeating phrase of 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. And that keeps repeating, and you'll hear that really outlined in the piano and the bass part. Let's jump up to 214 BPM and try this with the track. So we're at number 7, and if you've made it this far, congratulations. These are not easy grooves to get the hang of. Hopefully these are giving you a snapshot into the world of contemporary drumming and what these drummers are really doing on the kit in these sorts of situations. So, number 7, we have the Vijay Iyer trio playing Human Nature with Marcus Gilmore on drums. I've had the pleasure of seeing Marcus perform a few times in New York, and every time I watch him play, I'm absolutely blown away by what he's capable of on the kit and just how musical he is as a drummer. So, this song is called Human Nature. If you know the Michael Jackson version, you're familiar with the melody, but this one is rearranged in 13/8 time, which sounds kind of crazy, but you'll hear how the melody really sits in 13/8. So here's the track, let's take a listen, and then we'll break down a 4-bar phrase that Marcus plays. So hopefully there you recognize the melody from the original Michael Jackson tune, Human Nature. The difference here, of course, is we're in 13/8 time, and the way Vijay has sort of divided the 13/8 is into groupings of 5 notes and groupings of 3 notes. We have 5/8, 5/8, and 3/8 all put together in one bar. Now, even though Marcus Gilmore is improvising on this track, none of this is planned out. It's all based around the melody that's happening. So you're going to hear that the cymbals are played in time with the chord changes, and it's just a very musical part that Marcus plays here. Right now, let's bump this up to 162 BPM and put this with the track. All right, so we cannot have a lesson on contemporary drumming without including some Tigran Hamasyan. Let's talk about Vardavar. This is a track that Nate Wood plays drums on, and believe it or not, we're in 4/4. So when you look at Tigran's catalog of music, Vardavar is one of those tracks it's a little bit elusive. There's not a lot of people who talk about it, and it's very complex in terms of groupings and the rhythms that are used in this track. So breaking this down, we have a grouping of 5, we have another grouping of 5, a grouping of 3, we have 2 more groupings of 5, and then a grouping of 4 and a grouping of 5. Now if you add all of that up, these are all 16th notes, we have 2 full bars of 4/4. Here we go with the track. This is at 142 BPM, and this one is just crazy. Here we go. Number 9, we're looking at another Tigran Hamasyan tune called the Court Jester, which was actually the very first Tigran tune I ever performed with a group. And it's all based around different groupings, similar to Vardavar, and the bass drum and the hi-hats are going to be in unison, and lots of filling in with the ghost notes. We're back with another crazy drum part, but it's so cool because everything Nate Wood does in this drum part is exactly lined up with all of the other instrumentation on this track. And the way the melody sits over top of this rhythmic foundation is just brilliant. So go check out the track, check out the whole record. All of Shadow Theater is incredible. So when you break down everything that's going on here, because there's a lot happening, everything can pretty much be broken down into groupings of 2 notes or 3 notes. And you'll see that as you go into every bar and you'll see kick, ghost, ghost, or you'll hear kick, ghost, kick, ghost. And it's all just basically finding the accents and filling in the spaces with ghost notes. Of course, you have that bar of 17/16 at the very beginning, dotted quarter note, which equals 3 eighth notes, and then it's just groupings of 3 and 2 16th notes, back to back to fill out the rest of that bar. So once you're ready, you can put this with the track, which is at 135 BPM to the quarter note, or dotted quarter equals 90. Here we go. All right, we've made it to our very last groove that we're going to go over, and this is again a 3rd song from Tigran Hamasyan, except this time we're looking at a drum part by R+R NOW, who played on the album Mockroot, instead of Nate Wood, who was on some of the earlier records. So this track called The Grid is just ridiculous. We have alternating bars of 17/16 and 15/16. Now, if you add those up, it is essentially 4/4 if you wanted to group all of those together. It's 32 16th notes, which is 2 bars, 4/4. All right, so there's a lot going on there too. It seems like we say that every time, but this pattern is so cool because we're dealing in 16th notes, but it almost has this sort of quintuplet feel because we have notes grouped in groupings of 5 notes, 5 16th notes. So the first thing we need to play this groove, down here, I have a bell. You can put one of these on your snare, you can put it on your rack tom. For now, I'm just gonna put this on the rack tom, and I'm putting a towel under it so it doesn't rattle against the rim. So what Arthur is doing here, I'm going to play this on the hi-hats. That's what I've notated. But he's kind of playing this on a small stack that he has on his kit. Over here, I have a bigger stack with a china on the bottom and a 20-inch crash. So lots of very percussive effects happening in this groove. So when we look at the first bar, we have 2 groupings of 5 16th notes. And then we have a grouping of 7 16th notes at the end. And you'll see that based on the beaming. And then in the bar of 15/16, we have 3 groupings of 5 16th notes. And you'll see throughout this pattern here that the backbeat is always on that second grouping of 5. So keep all of that in mind as you're working through this groove. Start slow, like I always say. We're going to be going between the small bell here, the hats, the stack, and a whole bunch of other stuff, so make sure you start slow. So we've made it to the very end. Congratulations for making it through some crazy drum parts. And the goal with this lesson wasn't just to challenge you, it was to inspire you with creativity and show you what's out there and what other drummers are doing behind the kit in contemporary music. So I want to hear from you. Do you think we're in a golden age of drumming, or is that something that's long past and we're never going to see again? Leave a comment below. Let me know. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Lastly, I want to say a huge thank you to Sam Vesely from Piano for creating all of these ridiculous loops that you can go and download and practice with. They were not easy, so mad props to Sam for doing that. With that, thank you so much for watching. I really, really appreciate it, and I will see you in the next lesson. Cheers.